We begin here at home as world leaders, including President Bola Tinubu, yesterday joined the Catholic faithful and Christians worldwide to mourn the passing of His Holiness Pope Francis, praying to God to grant his beloved servant eternal rest. President Tinubu described the Pope as a humble servant of God, epitome of peace, tireless champion of the poor, and guiding light for millions. In a statement he personally signed, the Pope's passing, coming just after the celebration of Christ's resurrection, is a sacred return to his Maker at a time of renewed hope for Christians. The president further stated that in mourning the late pontiff, humanity should also celebrate his legacy by honoring him not with words alone, but with action, by lifting those who are down, healing our communities, and defending the dignity of every person. Meanwhile, after 18 days abroad, President Bola Tinubu has returned to Abuja, Nigeria. His aircraft touched down at the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport at 9:50 p.m. local time. He was received by senior officials, including the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the FCT Minister, the National Security Advisor, Chief of Staff Femi Gbajabiamila, and the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning. President Tinubu left Nigeria on April 2nd, spending time in Paris before reportedly traveling to London. Amid criticism over his absence during deadly attacks in Plateau and Benue states, the presidency maintained that the president was in constant communication and continued to issue directives to security agencies. While in Paris, Tinubu held talks with the U.S. State Department's senior advisor for Africa, Masad Bolos, on strengthening bilateral ties, regional security, and sustainable economic development. Of course, we did break the news live here on this program yesterday when Pope Francis passed away, and the world has joined hands in paying tribute to him.
They have, which includes our own president, Bola Tinubu, has shared out his own tributes and well wishes, and he joins a list of leaders around the world, as we will get into during our world brief and also on our newspaper review. But I do think first and foremost it is fitting to welcome the president back to the country and hope that he is, as he reportedly says so, is ready to continue doing the work of leadership at the helm of this country. We have seen that already he has engaged in meetings with service chiefs to directly address this insecurity issue with finding ourselves, most especially in Benue and in Plateau states. But I do think that it's going to take a bit more, I think, to satisfy the people of Nigeria at a time like this. There are many people who felt as though, especially when we're looking at Plateau and Benue, that perhaps enough hasn't been done in terms of literal eye service, people being able to see the face of the president and senior members of this elected government. So in order to address the concerns when it comes to safety, especially since we continue to report the deadly attacks that are taking place in those regions. Of course, there was also the criticism of the Inspector General of Police, who made a visit to Benue but didn't actually go to the site of these killings. So it will be interesting to see what the plan is for the president. Will he be traveling into these communities? Will he be speaking to these people directly? Or what is his plan to address these killings? We do hear from the highest echelons of the Catholic Church, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka, also calling on the federal government, calling on the president to do something to address these killings. So I do think that while we do welcome the president back and are very happy to see him hale and hearty, it is time now for him to really do the business of being the president and being able to address the concerns of the people who have been eagerly anticipating his return.
Okay, two issues that you brought up. First, the Pope. We discussed the Pope yesterday, Pope Francis, 1936 to 2025. He died on a day, I said, the significance and the symbolism of it will not be lost, not just to the Catholic faithful, but to the entire Christian community and the world. On Easter Monday, hours after he had blessed, persons on Easter Day. Now, I've written an extended commentary, over 2,000 words, on the subject today, on the back page of this day newspaper. It's just titled simply Pope Francis, 1936 to 2025. And in that piece, I try to raise a number of issues, some of which will include, one, the future of the church This was a pope who was the pope of the people, who was the pope of the peripheries, as he was described, who was a pope of peace. In other words, this was a transformative leader who tried to transform the church, modernize it. He was resisted on many of the issues by conservative elements within the Catholic Church, including Cardinal Raymond Burke of the United States. But he stood very firm. Cardinal Burke was in fact demoted twice. But at the end of the day, I think he was able to achieve some of his objectives, particularly with regard to saying that the church must be a prophetic church, a church that supports the poor. And he led by example. He refused to live in the opulent neighborhood of the papacy. You know, he said he would live only in the Casa Santa Maria. And now that the church is planning its burial, which will happen within 6 days, according to tradition, he even says he should be buried in just wood and zinc, and not at St. Peter's Basilica, but in much humbler environment. And that was what defined his papacy for 12 years, 2013 to 2025. His emphasis on the poor, his emphasis on identifying with people, his emphasis on building bridges, even to the Eastern Catholic Orthodox Church, you know, that had schism with the mainstream Catholic Church since 1034. And also reaching out to Muslims, reaching out and preaching the gospel of peace and inclusiveness, inclusion, if you like, either in Bosnia and Herzegovina or in Egypt or in Myanmar or on the streets of Washington or elsewhere in the world. So we mourn the death of the Pope, but what is important now is what is next for the Catholic Church. Will they choose a liberal, as Pope Francis was, or would they choose a hardline conservative who will insist on the authoritarianism of the Catholic Church, or would they choose a moderate? There's also the question, as I wrote in my commentary, about age. Would they choose a younger person? Would they choose an older person? Are we also going to have something radical like having the first Asian Pope or the first African Pope? You know, as you pointed out again in the introduction. So it's all in the air, but you know, the sacred conclave of the cardinals will have to decide within the next 20 days. But it's a major turning point for the Catholic Church. They're going through an interregnum, a papal interregnum, what they call the Novendals. And they're mourning, Catholics are mourning, 1.4 billion of them all over the world. They will hold masses, they will hold prayers on a daily basis until Pope Francis is buried. But there's no doubt that this was an outsider who tried to revolutionize, modernize the church. And he'll be fondly and kindly remembered, as I've also argued, or as I've written this morning. Very quickly to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I think we're happy that President Tinubu is back. We welcome him, but there are issues that happened while he was away and that we need to address. And I think that all of this has to do, in my view, with transparency and accountability. The president told us that he was going on a working visit to France. Now he ended up in London. Nigerians would like to know, what did you do during that working visit? Transparency and accountability. Yeah, we saw a number of press statements, obituaries being issued, statements about census and all of that. Now, what Nigerians are asking for is transparency and accountability. They voted for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They just are saying that they want him to be present at all times. We have locations in this country. There is Obudu Cattle Ranch, where the president...
Cattle Ranch is always the first alternative.
It's the best.
Obudu Cattle Ranch is still there. In 2011, President Jonathan went there. We spent 2 weeks there. I was in government at the time. Now, they have Governor Soludo is building a state-of-the-art presidential retreat in Anambra. I visited the location. This is not a Google commentary. This is not a social media journalism. I was there. He could go to Anambra. The people in Anambra will be happy to host him. In Ogun State, there is also a presidential villa, and I guess it's the same in other states of the country. But the president of Nigeria is perpetually going abroad. That's the major concern of Nigerians. In the US, they have Camp David under, I think, President Carter, and then they have Mar-a-Lago under President Donald Trump. They don't go all over the world, you know, in a fit of absenteeism. I think that should be addressed, and President Tinubu should show that example. The concern that people are expressing is because they said our president cannot be perpetually, consistently, routinely absent. That's number one. Number two, now that he has returned, there are issues that he has to address. One, insecurity. We had elite absenteeism during the period that he was away. The elites of Nigeria, they too were wondering, where is our president? From France to London, only for him to show up yesterday. No, that is concerning. Number two is the issue of the economy. This administration, when it came to power, was talking about revenue. That revenue is the problem. Mr. Edun said so. The Minister of Finance and coordinating Minister of the Economy. Now, oil spot price of crude oil now is below $75, is below $70. These are urgent things that the president needs to worry about. Three, his party is in disarray. The APC is divided right down the middle. There are some elements within the CPC who are saying we don't want to be part of this party again. There are some elements who are saying we still want to be part of this party. There are also elements from the north who are saying, look, President Tinubu is not providing the kind of leadership that we expected. And they gave him 62% of the votes. These are very urgent issues that President Tinubu needs to sit down and address. Number four, who was in charge while he was away? I know that the Constitution says, you know, there is a threshold of 21 days and all that. But we did not see a situation where the vice president was put in charge. We saw press statements. No, President Tinubu needs to stay at home because this boat is rocking. It's being rocked. And maybe perhaps he needs to take a second look at his cabinet. Yeah, during the period, Minister Edun met with IMF World Bank Group on Article 4. Minister Kiari, in charge of agriculture, was there. Some other officials were there. Then one or two things happened. But look, we didn't see a sense of coordination. When the president is leaving town, we should see a sense of coordination. Now that he is back, he is the man Nigerians voted for. He is the man they elected as their president. Can he take charge on all of these issues and give us a sense of stability within his party and within the country? This, I think, are the concerns of Nigerians.
Absolutely. There certainly is a daunting agenda in place for the president as he returns home. We welcome him home. I'll do my best to marry both of the issues, which is the tributes that the world is currently paying to Pope Francis and the return of President Bola Tinubu. When I think of Pope Francis, I remember 2019 when he made that visit to South Sudan. And in his plea for peace, he got down on his knees and he kissed the feet of the president, Salva Kiir, Vice President Riek Machar, and Rebecca Nyandeng de Mabior. A show of ultimate humility. Also a show of leadership. Now, what is leadership? For him, for Pope Francis, leadership was not about being at the pulpit or being in high and mighty places disconnected from the people. It was about being amongst the people, understanding their plight and looking for solutions from within. Now, he coined a term called the globalization of indifference, and I think that's a very apt topic for us this morning. Because more than ever, we are connected to our brothers and sisters from different parts of the world, even from different parts of the country, yet we seem to care less. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because you look at the plight that we have in every corner of Nigeria at the moment. Yet we're not seeing the type of leadership that we hope for. The leadership that will go in and sit down with the warring parties, sit down with those who have the issues and who are struggling to have conflict resolution and find solutions from the ground, from within. The leadership that is created from the grassroots is the type of leadership that we're calling for in this moment in time. Now, although he was a student of chemistry and philosophy, I believe, Pope Francis, he was an economist in my eyes, because for him, it was running the economy was not about being obsessed with money, was not about being obsessed with amassing wealth. It was about seeing how the poorest and the most vulnerable in society can be supported and a safety net can be created for them. And this is all that Nigerians are asking for. Since they voted this administration into power, all they are asking for is a safety net, the ability to earn a living, the ability to be able to work and make something meaningful out of our lives, feed our families, send children to school, and live an aspirational life. And so amidst all of these promises, this is a call for us to reflect on what leadership means and the type of leadership that we want to see amongst our own people. The globalization of indifference is what I reiterate, because again, we cannot continue with this type of body language that almost comes across as though there is an indifference towards the plight, because there's now so many reports of deaths, so many reports of hardship, it's rampant all over the place that it's easy to become desensitized to it. But this is a call for us to not become desensitized to it, to go to the ground and to confront it head on, and in philosophical terms and metaphorical terms, bow down to the knees of those warring parties, those disputing, and kiss their feet in a show of humility that shows how much commitment we have to security, to economic security, and to social security for all in Nigeria.